Okay, so the opening is going to be the result of what we're going to do in this video. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I'm going to stick it in the beginning. But we're basically going to create something with a dominant chain, and I cover this in my chromatic harmony course, all kinds of dominant chains within key and then completely around the circle of fifths. Dominant chains are important aspects of many, many different styles, from classical to jazz. If you don't know about my chromatic harmony course, it's in the description. I have 150 examples of just chromatic harmony, from simple to stuff with extensions and dominant chains. So let's go ahead and get started. So what's a dominant chain? Well, this is a dominant chain. Okay. It's just cycling through dominant chords through the circle of fifths. Usually the intention is to get back to the home plate, so that would be a dominant chain in key. One of the most famous dominant chains is this Tchaikovsky Nutcracker Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, super reduced. Back to the home plate. There was a dominant chain. Circle of fifths. F sharp dominant, B dominant, E dominant, A dominant, D dominant, and then he works his way back to E minor. So I'm playing really simplified versions because I just got over a sickness and it's hard to play keyboard right now. So here's a transcription of a Louis Armstrong solo, and let's play through the progression. E dominant, A dominant, D9, still a dominant chord, G7, C. So that's an entire dominant chain right there. Now again, after the C, A7, D7, G7 sharp 5, still counts as a dominant bass chord, resolves naturally to the C. So the type of dominant you play actually does not matter. It will still flow, so you could throw in a bunch of extensions here with E's actually. So if I'm going to do an E7, I could throw in a sharp 9 to the A7, you know, stuff like that, and continue on with the dominant chain. The point is that any type of dominant chord you choose will work. So if I do something like this, especially if you go in the counterclockwise direction of the circle of fifths, it always works with dominant chains. It's why they're loved so much in a lot of styles, is because they're hard to fail at in that cyclic manner. So if I do that sharp 9, regular 9 to the A dominant, flat 9 to the D dominant, G dominant sharp 5, still works. That dominant chain in that cyclic counterclockwise motion, circle of fifths motion. So again, in my course, I have all kinds of dominant chains with all kinds of extensions that you can use in practice. And it's aimed at composers, not keyboard players. That being said, what we're going to do is come up with a harmonic scheme now. We're just going to create a dominant chain. E dominant, A dominant, D dominant, G dominant. That's our progression, okay? And then we're going to repeat that. E dominant, A dominant. Now a B dominant, so we could get back to the E dominant, as if we might repeat. Notice it's a 4/5 cadence with dominant chords. So by itself it doesn't sound great. We need to make this musical. And I threw in a really cool quartal type ending here that you can use. It's in a little extra bonus just for watching this video. So we're going to create something different than the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy or the Louis Armstrong piece. It's going to be a little different. So what I'm going to do is something like this in the low end, and create some kind of syncopation pattern. So I might go from the E dominant, doing that pattern like this, to the A dominant as an answer. Okay, then I might repeat this on the D dominant, answer it with the G dominant, exactly the same. Now create some kind of cadence. And that's where we throw in our cool little ending. So the reason I kept the G natural in there, even though we're going to the B dominant, is because it was common to the A. It sounds a little better than this. That would be more diatonic to E, but the G natural sounds better. And so we'll just end on a unison and do this little quartal shape, but playing it Technically, you could call it an E13 with a 9. We'll take that shape, but we'll plane it. And use that as the way to end the phrase, or even the piece of music. Because we're just writing literally one phrase, just to show dominant music. So we might do something like this. A walk up. Notice the walk up's major, even though we're using the dominant chord on the 1. I had to move the keyboard, sorry. So let's make the bass a little bit more interesting. Let's use a chromatic passing tone to the A, and then do that on the D. The D7, I'm sorry. So it has a little consistency and a little bit of chromaticism. So the walk up. So it gives it a little interest with that chromatic passing tone. Chromaticism would be your friend in this kind of style of music, whatever style this is. So I'm going to review. And then we throw in our little chordal planing ending. A little faster, and I'll play it back from the sequencer. The whole point is we're creating a piece of music with chromatic harmony and dominant chaining. And a style I usually don't create music in, so here it is full speed. The other point is that dominant chains are used in so many different styles that you probably should not neglect learning them. And I go through a ton of them in my chromatic harmony course. In key, partial dominant chains, etc., and they extend all the way back in history. I mean, all the way back to Mozart and whatnot, to Louis Armstrong, as we saw. Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony, near the end, I believe, there's a dominant, flat 9 dominant chain, and it sounds extremely tragic, so you could get a lot of mileage out of these dominant chains that sound nothing like what we just did. I'll actually pull that up in another video and we'll cover that, because that's another way you could use dominant chains and have an extremely tragic kind of sound. It's in his Sixth Symphony, the first movement, I believe.